Hello and welcome to COLREGS in Depth. Today I'm going to be looking at Rule 15, which is crossing situations. Now of course Rule 15 fits again into Part B, Section 2, Conduct of Vessels in Sight of one another. So we're only going to be applying this rule when two vessels can actually see each other. So looking at the rule itself, when two power-driven vessels are crossing so as to involve risk of collision, the vessel which has the other on her own starboard side shall keep out of the way, and shall, if the circumstances of the case admit, avoid crossing ahead of the other vessel. Now, aside from the fact that it points out if you've got the other on your starboard side you shall keep out of the way, there's a couple of important points to highlight. Firstly, crossing situations only apply when there's two power-driven vessels, so if one of them's not power-driven, this rule cannot apply. The other part to take away, of course, is you need to avoid crossing ahead of the other vessel. This doesn't tell you specifically what action to take, but what you should avoid doing. This means you're free to either stop in the water and let the other one pass ahead, or you could come round to starboard and pass astern of her. Another thing, of course, with this rule is, compared to rules 13 and 14, there's no definition of what a crossing situation is. So we're left to assume if it's not overtaking and it's not head-on, then it has to be crossing. So let's have a look at a couple of situations. Okay, so we're going to place ourselves down here on this blue bulk carrier, sailing along quite happily, and then we see a large container ship right out far on the starboard side. Of course, as soon as we see them, we cannot do anything. We need to continue to monitor to determine if risk of collision exists. So after a short while, the compass bearing hasn't changed, we know risk of collision exists. As she's on our starboard side, we're the ones that have to keep out of the way. We've got two options. We could either stop in the water and let her cross ahead of us, or we can keep going and come round to starboard and pass astern of her. All we need to do is avoid crossing ahead. In this situation, I'm going to make a bold alteration round to starboard, and then we're both going to be able to continue. As you can see, risk of collision is clearly passed, and once it has, the blue vessel is then free to alter back round to port and continue on her original course. Risk of collision is over. And now let's take a look at a second diagram. This time we're going to place ourselves on the green bulk carrier down at the bottom of the screen, sailing along quite happily until we see a blue bulk carrier out far on our port side. Now we're going to have to carry on for a little while again to determine if risk of collision exists. Once we've seen the compass bearing isn't changing, then we know that there's action to be taken. Again, we know it's not an overtaking situation, it's not a head-on situation, so it has to be crossing. We're both power driven, so the crossing rule applies. This time I've got her on my port side, which makes me the stand-on vessel. In this situation all I can do is maintain my course and speed. Fortunately for me, the blue vessel's complying with the rules. She makes a bold alteration to starboard, and we both continue on our way, with me holding my course and speed. Once she's well astern of me, she then comes round again, back to port, to our original track, and we both continue. Risk of collision is clearly over. And that brings us to the end of Rule 15. Of course, the things to note are, by its very absence, the definition of crossing. If it's not head-on and it's not overtaking, it's going to have to be a crossing. Both vessels must be power-driven. The one with the other on the starboard side is the give-way vessel. And you need to avoid crossing ahead, so you've either got to make a bold alteration to starboard or stop dead in the water and let the other one cross ahead of you. I hope you found the information in this video useful. I'll be returning next week with another COLREGS in depth. So until next time, take care and goodbye.